Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. I am Tassos Klimos. I am your host for today. Happy Saturday, everybody. Hope you guys are enjoying the start to your weekend. A little bit of a new, different video series here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel. If you don't know me, I do a bunch of videos on the channel. I do NBA player prop parlays. I do H-Stage with Ev. I do play action takes. I do a bunch of stuff here and there, college football picks, all that stuff. I thought that with the NFL season winding down, I know it's a little late in the season, but with my workload with college football kind of winding up and everything else kind of, some time in my schedule, I decided let's do something a little bit different. Let's do a couple of new videos here. And basically what I'm doing here, it's a same game parlay. I'm giving you same game parlays for NFL games, and considering that there are 3 Saturday NFL games on today, I'll be posting same game parlay videos for each of the 3 Saturday games. So make sure to check that out, guys. This is the same game parlay video for the Minnesota Vikings at the Cincinnati Bengals game. So what I'm going to be doing for you guys today here, I'm giving you 2, that's counted 2, same game parlays that you guys can either ride or fade for today's game, Vikings at Bengals. The first same game parlay will be a kind of a more realistic, easier hit, right? With the odds will be a little lower, but it's a lot of a higher chance of hitting. And the second parlay, we're going to take a little bit more of a risk, higher odds. Obviously, the hit rate, the chances of hitting being a little more difficult, but that's how we're going to do it. So one parlay will be a little easier. One parlay will take a little more risks. But without further ado, let's not waste any more time, guys. Let's get into these same game parlays for the Saturday football action, Vikings at Bengals. So guys, for both of these parlays, these will both be 3, count them, 3-leg parlays, and I primarily use DraftKings as my sports book of choice. I'm not sponsored or anything, it just works for me. So when you look at my odds, the lines that I pick, the odds that I have, I am using DraftKings where I'm getting the numbers from. You can obviously shop around, see what you can get out there, but I preferably use DraftKings. And so, guys, for the first leg of our first same game parlay for this Vikings-Bengals game, I'm going TJ Hockenson over 39.5 receiving yards. This is an alternate line. Now, guys, it is no secret the Cincinnati Bengals are currently giving up the most yards per game to the tight end position in the National Football League. They are the worst team in the NFL against the tight end position. So naturally, you have a tight end like TJ Hockenson, who is a top 3, top 5 best tight end in the National Football League right now, going up against the worst defensive team in the National Football League against tight ends. You know I got to get some TJ Hockenson action in there. He's been fantastic this season. Now, I am going alternate line. To be totally honest with you guys, the original line, which I believe is 50.5, is not a bad bet. I wouldn't hate taking that, to be totally honest with you. But, I mean, if you're a little balls, you can go with it. But we do have to remember that it is Nick Mullins starting. This is not Kirk Cousins. It's not Josh Dobbs or anything. It's Nick Mullins. Not that Josh Dobbs was playing any better before that. But we do have to take that in consideration. The quarterback for the Vikings, I don't trust them at all. This game could be ugly depending on how Mullins looks. I know he came in and kind of saved them versus the Raiders, but let's be real. It's not like he did anything crazy. He just got them into field goal range to kick a field goal. That's about all he did. He did, again, better than Josh Dobbs, but I wasn't really all that impressed. And so that is why I'm going alternate line here just to be safe. Again, probably could cover the 50.5 mark. He has covered it consistently this season. But when you look at his numbers for just receiving yards at this over 39.5 line, it's pretty crazy. Hockenson has hit over 39.5 receiving yards in 9 of his last 10 games and in 11 out of 13 games this season for the Vikings. So he's been crushing this number, whether it be Kirk Cousins or Josh Dobbs or even, was it Jared Hall, whoever the other quarterback was that started, he hits this number. I think with Nick Mullins, even though I don't trust Nick Mullins and I don't know what this Vikings offense will look like this week, Alexander Mattison out, I do trust TJ Hockenson to get his targets. He has the most target share on the Vikings. Now, that is due partially to injuries to Justin Jefferson, but Hockenson has been their top guy. He's been their top targeted guy this season. I don't think that'll change with Nick Mullins. I like the line here. Again, the Bengals defense worse in the NFL against the tight end position. So, love that for the first leg of this same game parlay. And guys, for the second leg of the same game parlay, we're going with another alternate line, giving Jamar Chase over 49.5 receiving yards. By the way, guys, all the data, all the information that I give you here on the screen, I get from Outlier. They are the sponsor of today's video. Link in the description below, 7-day free trial. When you use our special link, guys, they give you all the best sports betting data on the market you can find. So much information, specifically with football. I feel like football, they have a lot of great information, a lot of great data to use. I've been using it. I guarantee you guys, you will not be disappointed. Try it out for yourself. 7-day free trial. Link in the description below. You will not be disappointed. But Jamar Chase, kind of the same situation with TJ Hawkinson. I don't hate his regular line of over 69.5. I don't think it's crazy to expect him to hit that. But again, we do have a backup quarterback in Jake Browning who has been playing well. This Vikings defense has been playing well too. I just don't like it. It's a little high, and Chase has missed that mark a few times this season. I feel like over 49.5, you're getting a much better chance of hitting. He has covered this in 62% of his games this season. That is 8 out of 13 games for Jamar Chase for this 49.5 line. So even with the injuries and all the inconsistency with the Bengals offense, he's still hitting it at a 62% rate. And in the 3 games with Jake Browning without Joe Burrow, he's hit this in 2 out of 3 games. He did not hit this in their last game versus Indianapolis, but in the previous 2 games with Jake Browning, he did against the Steelers and against Jacksonville, he did hit this number. So even with Jake Browning, he's still hitting this number at a pretty high rate. The Vikings are in the bottom half of the league in receiving yards a game allowed to the wide receiver position. They currently allow, are in the ballpark of 160 yards per game to the wide receiver position. That is about 13th in the league. It's bottom half. It's not great. They're about middle of the road, slightly below the middle of the pack. So it's kind of a favorable matchup in that regard. But truthfully, I just think this Vikings defense is waiting for that moment to just crack. I like Brian Flores. I respect him as a coach. I respect what the Vikings have done, but they don't have a great secondary. And this defense has been all built on all-out blitzing, and it's kind of this attitude of just saying, hey, fuck it, we're going to go for it. And they just blitz like crazy. And listen, it works. It worked against the Raiders. They shut them out. It does work. It has worked. And for the third and final leg of this first parlay, we are going with an alternate line on the Bengals spread. We're going Cincinnati Bengals plus 3.5. Personally, I do think the Bengals probably win this game, but again, this is the first parlay. We're playing a little safer here with our picks. They're at home. They're fighting for their lives in the playoff race, and the Bengals could still make the playoffs, even with all the injuries to Joe Burrow and everything else that's happened this season. They could still make the playoffs. So can Minnesota, but this Vikings team, and give them credit, they've had considering everything that's happened this year to them, a slow start, and then they finally kind of started getting together, and then Kirk Cousins goes down, Justin Jefferson goes down, every running back they've had has been hurt this year. Give them a little bit of credit. The fact that they're still here in the playoff race is pretty impressive. But I'm sorry, you're just not going to convince me that Nick Mullins is going to lead the Vikings to a road victory in Cincinnati over a Bengals team that, even without Joe Burrow, Jake Browning proved me wrong. I thought he was going to be an absolute dud when he started for Burrow. I think this was going to be an absolute disaster. He's actually held his own, and I kind of think the same thing will happen here. So I think Bengals alternate line plus 3.5 just to be safe. There's no, even if, let's say somehow the Vikings do win this game, I just don't see this team beating the Bengals badly on the road. Without Alexander Madison, they have Ty Chandler as their running back 1. I don't even know who is below him on the depth chart. No, obviously no Cam Akers, no Alexander Madison. I don't know what they're going to do here. And offensively, Justin Jefferson is still banged up, although he's going to play. He was rushed to the hospital last week. The Vikings offense is problematic to me. And on the defensive side, again, they've been playing very well, but it's kind of gimmicky, and you kind of feel like at any moment the gimmick's going to burst, like the bubble's going to pop. I think it could be this week. So I like the alternate line here, plus 3.5 to add to our 3-leg parlay. And when you mix those 3 together, you get a parlay of plus 146 odds. Not half bad for the safe parlay of our 2 same-game parlays. So that's the first one out of the way. Now we move on quickly to the second same-game parlay for this Vikings-Bengals game. And for the first leg of this second same-game parlay, we're keeping it simple. Bengals money line. Again, I kind of just talked about it on the last point when the alternate spread. I think Cincinnati wins this game at home. They've been playing very well. They've won each of their last 2 games. Jake Browning has been playing very well. The Bengals front 4 really solid. I think they could give Nick Mullins and the Vikings some real problems. And again, Jake Browning versus Nick Mullins is quite the crazy quarterback battle. I didn't think we would see that at any point during the season, but here we are. It's kind of what 2023 has been in a nutshell for the NFL. if I have to pick between the two quarterbacks, I'm going to take Jake Browning in this Bengals offense versus Nick Mullins and the Vikings offense. I don't know if the Vikings are going to be able to run the ball at all. And again, in the passing game, that means you're going to have Nick Mullins throwing the ball 30 plus times in the game. I just don't like that. So we'll take the Bengals on the money line and expect them to take care of business at home against a banged up Vikings team. And for the second leg, we're going TJ Hockenson, anytime touchdown score against the Bengals. Now, I know it's kind of ironic. I've been talking so much shit on the Vikings offense with Nick Mullins, and yet I have a TJ Hockenson over receiving yard prop, and I have a TJ Hockenson anytime touchdown prop. Again, we talked about it earlier in the video. The Bengals defense is by far the worst in the National Football League against the tight end position. They are bottom 10 league, and also, they're the worst team in terms of yards given up to tight ends. They are also bottom 10 in the league in touchdowns given up to the tight end position. I just don't think the Vikings offense will be held out a touchdown for 2 weeks in a row. And if I had to pick a player on the Vikings to score a touchdown here, TJ Hockenson is a safe bet considering the matchup, considering the thing. I just don't see Minnesota running the ball successfully with Ty Chandler and whoever else is there. Again, Madison's out. They don't have Cam Akers. I don't really know who the guy is after Ty Chandler. But I just, the more and more that I look at it, the more and more I'm like, it just makes sense. Hockenson anytime touchdown. If I had to take an anytime touchdown on the Vikings side, it's got to be Hockenson. I do like the spot. He hasn't been hitting it all that much this season. But again, considering the matchup, considering that Nick Mullins, I think he'll utilize him as a safety blanket. I think Hawkins is going to have a pretty big day here. And I do think a touchdown will be included. So, anytime touchdown, nice little plus 200 over odds to throw into this parlay. And for the third and final leg of this parlay, we're going Bengals team total over 17.5 points. The Bengals have covered this over of 17.5 points in 9 out of 13 games this season. That's a 69% hit rate. Nice. And they pretty much almost doubled this number in their last 2 games. They scored 34 points in each of their last 2 games. This team that's been scoring, and I know everyone's saying, but the Vikings defense and all that stuff, but you kind of know what happens. This is the law of the NFL. The Raiders scored 0 points versus Minnesota last week, and they dropped 63 on the Chargers on Thursday Night Football. This is just what happens. A team has a game like this, and they just completely buck the trend the next game. The Raiders had that when the offensive side. I think the Vikings, the same thing will happen on the defensive side. They shut the Raiders out. They held them to 0. Not to say the Raiders are a great offensive team, but everyone's going to be, the Vikings defense, they're so good. And they are. They've had a great season. Brian Flores has done a very good job. But again, I've been talking about it all video long. It kind of feels gimmicky. It's a lot of blitzing. It's a lot of just kind of like, hey, this is it. We have nothing to lose. Let's just say fuck it and go for it kind of defense, which it's been working, but it's going to get them burned at some point. I kind of feel like it's going to happen here. I think Cincinnati's going to score at least 3 touchdowns here. I could see this game going like 24-16 Bengals. I think it's a pretty realistic score and outcome of this game. I just think the Bengals have too much firepower, and Jake Browning has been playing well enough that I think him to score 18 points against this Vikings team, I don't think it's crazy. And also, I don't think we're also counting the fact that the Vikings probably are going to be turning over the football a little bit, putting the Bengals in better field position. So I like the spot here over 17.5 team total points for the Bengals. And when you put those 3 picks together, guys, you get a parlay of plus 430 odds. So you're seeing a much more significant payout. Obviously a little riskier. That TJ Hockenson anytime touchdown is really what takes this up a notch. But a little more risky, but I still think it's a pretty good chance of hitting. So that is the second same game parlay for this Vikings-Bengals game. And guys, that is it for me for this game. Again, make sure to check out the channel. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you like, comment, tell me if you're riding, if you're fading, if you're going to fade me. Go ahead and comment below. Make sure to stay tuned and check out for the rest of the day. The rest of these same game parlay videos for the other 2 Saturday games will be dropping later on in the day. Guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, appreciate the love. Until next time, I hope you're all winners.